I guess unlike Francis and Emily, I'm here kind of as an end user. I'm the customer. I'm the person who lives in the city and works in it. And just by way of background, I'm a real dub. I grew up in Artane, and all of the places that I've lived and worked with throughout my entire adult career have been pretty much in the centre of the city. In fairness, a lot of it's on the south side. So, you know, if you look at it, I originally did have some maps. I had some images, but Paul talked me out of them. So if you look, but I did have a map of where I've been. You know, the original offices for the companies I've been involved with would have been in Dublin 2 and 4. Recently, with Workday, we moved to Dublin 8, and we moved there in 2008, and it was a little. I'd say that area's come along a huge amount. We're currently in Fumbly. We're in a former architect's office, actually. Symbol of many things, I suppose. But that area has certainly, since we've moved in there, has moved up a lot. If any of you have been to the Fumbly Cafe, that's our local canteen. We like it a lot. But I guess I met Paul because we're moving for the first time as a business that I've been involved with. We're going to have an office on the north side, up by Smithfield, just on Church Street, in a building that was built at the peak of the Celtic Tiger, I guess, a thing called the King's Building, which is a massive 160,000 square foot building, something like that. We're not taking all of it. We're taking everything but 2 floors. So I think our co-tenant will actually be the OPW or something like that at some government agency. So it'll be interesting. But if you look at what we're doing with that building, in terms of kitting it out, well, first of all, I just wanted what's worth noting is that when we went to look for commercial space in Dublin of that scale, there isn't a lot of it around. And the stuff that was available was down in the Docklands around Google. And the pricing on that is becoming, even for someone like Workday, who's got a lot of cash on our balance sheet, that was reasonably prohibitive for what you were looking at. But as soon as we were presented with the King's Building, I had no hesitation about thinking that it was going to be the right one for us, because I know that area very well and I'm very comfortable with it. And I knew that it was the type of place that our staff wanted to be, because where we are in Fumbly, in Dublin 8, is incredibly close to Georgia Street and Camden Street, and all of the pretty vibrant restaurant scene that's grown up since there. And it's really important to our staff to have, to be in the city centre. And we actually also did a mapping. We looked at where our staff actually live and thought about their commute. And in fact, moving to Smithfield actually shortens the commute on average for most of our workers. But city centre, really important. And if you look at a lot of, until relatively recently, a lot of big technology companies, the people we compete with, like SAP and Oracle, have all got, tend to have bigger offices out, towards the M50. But there is a larger trend to move into the city centre, mostly, and I can come up here and say, well, I'm a dub and I'm going to be happy living in and working in the city centre. But the reality is that the reason we're there is it's because where our staff want to be. That there are a set of people who've worked. A lot of them would have worked abroad in places like San Francisco and so on, and there the expectation is that you're going to be able to work or live in places that have got a lot of decent city centre amenities. And also, if you look at Workday, we're hiring a lot of people from continental Europe, and those too also, would expect to live and work in a city centre. But we're doing other things in the building as well that I think are interesting. So, for instance, the 6th floor, that'll be a communal space for people to eat in, but we're not going to have a canteen in there because it's very important that we have relationships in the community. So I prefer for people to go and, buy food outside, and if they want to eat it, eat outside, that's fine. If they want to bring food in, that they make at home, that's fine, but you don't want to be providing food inside. I think it's kind of it sends the wrong message. It's not what you're about. And also one of the things that we've been doing in Fumbley is we've pretty significant engagement with the local schools. So, some of the staff go and spend, mornings with school children and, teaching them to read, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for those of you who know me, you know that I'm not a bleeding heart liberal. So we're not doing, we do these things because they're important to our staff. Because as we're, like, if you're in the technology business at the moment, it's a very vibrant business, and recruiting people is quite hard. And people want to come for work and work with companies that have, that run programs like this, because people spend so much time in working, they want to feel that their workplace is something that they can be proud of. And so all of these initiatives of our location and our engagement in the community are all things that make an awful lot of sense to us as a business when we're looking to recruit and grow our business here in Ireland. And I guess where all that leads me to is to reflect a little bit on what Francis was saying, which is that market forces won't sort it out. Well, I'm not fully certain that I totally agree with that. I certainly feel that the people that we're going to move into Smithfield, and the fact that these are all, on average, incredibly well-paid professional people, is going to have a really significant impact on that area. I certainly hope we do. I'd certainly be really proud if we could, but I feel that Smithfield is on an upward trajectory anyway. But that's us doing it. Now, we're doing it because the points I made earlier, that cities and inner city living is a fashionable, desirable thing for certain types of workers, right? And that's probably a big change that's taken place over the last 10, 15 years. But that's a market forces driven event, right? We're not moving really there because there's any state things that have made us go there or anything like that, right? This is us on market forces. And I think that, if I think about, the impact that the authorities have had on the North Inner City, well, apart from the tax incentives, which I totally agree with, right? Apart from that, the impact has not been that dramatic. I drive past there, obviously a lot, going to the airport, and the big thing that I've seen is just the widening at King Street. But any other intervention in that area, I think, is relatively minimal. So I would be a much stronger advocate. I certainly think incentives are the most important thing in terms of things that you can do for improving the city centre. Because there's certainly an old adage in the software business, well, I think it's in business in general, which is you get the behaviour you incent. And so incentives are good. But beyond that, and I was discussing this with Paul, I think the big elephant in the room is certainly, as relates to someone who's been living in Dublin all my life, is the issue of the car, right? It's at some level it's quite ridiculous that the building we're occupying is pretty much on the main thoroughfare from the south side to the airport on Church Street. So that's, like, it makes, one of the images I was going to present was a picture of the cars coming down Wine Tavern Street under, past Christ Church. And that is one of the main thoroughfares at the airport. And to think that in a city like Italy, that you'd have, the traffic to the airport going via the Pantheon, which is essentially the equivalent, is just kind of ridiculous. And so we've got to face up and, essentially now it's highly inconvenient because I'm lazy and a lot of our staff cycle to work. I'm not one of them yet, although I keep promising myself I will cycle. But we got to just take the car. One of the major inhibitors to certainly a city, the small inner city sized Dublin, is the fact that it's destroyed by cars. And until, it's going to be very hard to turn that into a place that a lot of people will want to live in until you deal with that. And then seeing as how I'm here and I'll just weigh in on the apartment size thing.
Good.
Our staff certainly want to live in the city centre. They don't want to live in Leixlip or Lucan, right? That's just ridiculous. No offence to people living in Leixlip or Lucan. They want to be able to cycle to work. Like, I'm installing a phenomenal amount of showers in our office because already we've about 20% of our population in Fumbley cycle into work. And we certainly want to encourage that, so we're going to put in really high-end facilities for that. But they need to be, so what you need, it's not so much size, although there certainly is a size element, it's diversity. I mean, the fact that 60% are one bedroom is shocking, but as we all know, it's not that they're just one bedroom, it's the fact that they're really shitty one bedrooms. They're really poor build quality, just poor everything about them. So it's much more quality and diversity, and you need, families need to be able to live like they do in any other decent inner city families live in the city centre, and they've perfectly acceptable accommodation to do so. Big apartments. Although I say it's not size, it's a range of things. There's lots of really small but good quality apartments in places like Paris, for instance. So I certainly think we need to deal with that. And I think that's about it. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. Cheers.